9, otherwise known as Tyler Para, for the NFL Stableford League. This is a special presentation of the first ever Power Rankings show for the NFL Stableford League. I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us and joining me today as I give you the 32 teams in order from least to best after the first week of the NFL Stableford League on PGA Tour 2K21, featuring players from all difficulty levels or all different levels in the TGC Tour's structure. We have players that have been on that are on the Platinum Tour all the way down to the CCL ranks, and I'm very excited to have these rankings for you today that were compiled by yours truly. And if anybody does have issue with them, hey, feel free to enter your thoughts into the comments in the Discord chat or on the forums, or reach out to me personally. But at the same time, this is my opinion, and everybody has a right to their opinion as well. But the reason why you're seeing the Cowboys on your screen is because that's the team we're going to start off with today, as they come in at number 32 in our rankings. It is Scott Pizer and the Dallas Cowboys, Pies 11, who had a tough first week, led off the schedule facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who beat them 20-18. Now, 18 points in NFL Stableford this year is a very low score, usually in any season, but this year with some of the point changes and some of the rule changes with adding Hail Marys that are now double points on the 9th and 18th hole with a birdie or better, and with the handicap system that we have in place, an 18-point score is probably not going to get it done most weeks. And the Cowboys have really struggled in the preseason, and now it's continued into the season. And this franchise seems to be snake bit in NFL Stableford since the first season, which was their only season that they made the playoffs. So hopefully there are better days ahead for America's team, but right now it seems like they're in the doldrums of the beginning of the Jerry Jones era of ownership. But we'll see if Scott can turn it around. You'll see, the players featured on the screen right now. This is from Madden, the NFL 16, which I haven't bought Madden since then. So, like the Cowboys, it's been a while since they've been good, and same with the Madden NFL franchise as well on EA Sports, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, the Cowboys will have a game this week, and they will be back. They drop actually 4 spots. They were 28th in the preseason ranking, and now they will play the Chargers, who are 1-0, coming off a big win, which we will get to in just a moment. As we hit number 32, we move up the chart, but I did want to go over a couple of league issues that, maybe a couple storylines here to start off the show. We did take a league vote to stay on the master settings, which was somewhat controversial. We did lose a team owner over it, and at the end of the day, we took a league vote, and we are affiliated as a forums thread on TGC Tours, but as far as the difficulty level goes and any conversations like that, I have no dog in the fight with TGC Tours on how they want to compete or have their competition be held. Our competition is separate from TGC Tours. I have no affiliation whatsoever with what they do, and I respect what they're trying to do with getting the difficulty level sorted out and settings sorted out. But our league has been from the beginning, tended to go with what the entire tours went with. But the fact that we already have a year's worth of data on the master swing, and we have handicaps set up, and there's already a lot of data out there, that I didn't want to mess with it. And at the end of the day, I took a vote, and I probably would have gone to the pro level had there been an overwhelming majority for it. But the fact that there was not a majority for going to the pro swing, and on top of that, it was an overwhelming 2/3 vote that went to stay with master swing. So that was one of the major storylines heading into week one, and I'm glad we got that sorted out and we were able to get the games kicked off without any incident. But if there are any questions about this topic, please feel free to DM me or send me a message on the forums and let me know like if you have any further concerns. But I am posting the settings everywhere that you can see them on the schedule. It may cause some issues with switching back and forth with your clubs, uh, between club sets and making sure your difficulty settings are correct. But for one round a week, I'm not asking, for you to play 4 rounds under these settings. It's only one round. So I'm just really hoping everybody, is understanding and has fun this upcoming season on the tours as well as in the NFL Stableford League. But going away from the meta of the league, the storylines in the league itself, we had the AFC West winning every team won in the AFC West this week, which is there was some tough matchups, a very competitive division. It looks like is going to be in those teams' future. I mean, there's 4 teams in that division: the Chiefs, the Raiders, who are the defending champions, and we'll be talking definitely more about them later on in the countdown. And these teams are going to be very competitive. The Denver as well is a very good team that has been consistently good in the NFL Stableford League. And then now the Chargers, who just pulled a big upset in Week 1, which we'll get to shortly. But at 32, we have the Dallas Cowboys, and now we move up to the number 31 team in the NFL Stableford Power Rankings. And where will the roulette wheel stop? Who will be the number 31 team? And we will get to them just in a moment here. And they are right here. They are the Carolina Panthers. Now, they were number 32 last week. They move up one spot. Polecat has been a consistent member of this league who's played his game week in and week out. Very glad to have Polecat back again as the owner of the Carolina Panthers. Runner-ups in the NFL Stableford Cup, gave it a heck of a run. Just came up a little bit short in the finals to the Miami Dolphins. But the Carolina Panthers had a 26-25 loss to the Jets in Week 1, and they gave them all they could handle. It was a home game. They go back to their usual home stadium, and they did a great job putting up a good fight in Week 1 against the Jets. Just came up a little bit short. But now they have a division game against the New Orleans Saints coming up this week, and that definitely could be a major turning point for them early on here if they could somehow beat the Saints and get a divisional win. But that is our number 31 team, the Carolina Panthers. Now on to number 30. The New Orleans Saints chime in at number 30. They were 27th last week in the preseason rankings. They are down 3 spots. Now, actually, this is wrong. Sorry, I read this wrong. My script was I got a little bit ahead of myself with the Saints. They are not number 30. It's actually the New England Patriots who are number 30. They were the 27th ranked team last week in the preseason rankings, and now they are down 3 spots. Sorry, Franz. I know it's been a tough go. You've been great getting your games in early every week so far, but they did lose 25-24 in Week 1 to the Miami Dolphins, who had a sub competing for them, and the sub actually is a former member of the league and is helping out one of our current team owners who's having some issues with power, and we're hoping that gets resolved soon and that he's safe down there in Louisiana. But yeah, Brandon did a great job pulling that win out. But at the same time, Franz, definitely looked disappointed. He had a golden opportunity at home to take advantage of a very odd situation and just was not able to get the job done. Missed some really key plays there at the end, and definitely is making good on the Hail Marys. He's been hitting all of those, but there's just been some issues along the way with, maybe hitting some of the key plays during the games. But next, they will play the Jets. And the Patriots and Jets is a good old rivalry that goes way back in the AFC East. And the Jets are 1-0. And you hate to say a must-win game in Week 2, but for the Patriots, ever since the Money Man was the team owner, it's been a little bit of a slog for this team. getting anything going. And Moneyman had a big first year with these guys. The second year, not so much with the PGA 2K21, but we'll see if Franz can turn it around. And as a platinum player, Franz and I go way back. I've played many matches with him in 24K, Pixel Golf Football. I know Franz can turn this around, and with the pro settings, he's going to get a lot more swings in pro playing on TST and some of the other tours, the Platinum Tour. But he's a master swing player at heart, I think, and he likes the master swing, and I think he's going to turn it around. But now, on to number 29. Who will it be? It's going to be the Tennessee Titans. Down 14 spots from 15th in the preseason rankings. Now, the Titans, relatively new owner, Platypus Brigade, who joined very late in the proceedings and is definitely a trooper for getting into the league, and a Twitch player who I really appreciate, reaching out to me, as we had a one owner that just was not responding, and he took the spot. And to get in the league, there's definitely people wanting to get in. And the Titans had a home game in week 1 that they lost to the Arizona Cardinals on Monday Night Football. It was a 24-22 defeat, and with 3 points of handicap, the Brigade just could not get the job done on the field. And there was a couple situations that just got them caught out, and the Cardinals didn't really have to play that great. They just had to play solid football, and they were able to pull out that win over the Titans, who now are in 29th in the power rankings. And we'll have to go to Seattle next week in week 2, and Seattle's 0-1, and they're going to be definitely looking to get back on track. But the Titans, stick with it. It's still early on. The only reason why the ranking was so high to begin with was because they were a playoff team last year. The Titans have been good in the NFL Stableford League. We've had a couple very good players that had this team, and now there's probably a little bit of a rebuilding process going on here. And I think Platypus can definitely, on the Xbox, has a little bit of a disadvantage, but as we've seen already with some of the other Xbox players in the league, that it's not that great of a disadvantage if you just play solid and use what you have available, and your handicap will definitely help you as well. But on to the next team in our power rankings, number 28. Who will it be? It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. From last week's rating of number 30, they're up 2 spots. Conrad had a nice win in week 1. Didn't really play the best, but sometimes you got to win ugly in NFL Stableford, and he definitely did that. Won 20-18 over the Cowboys, as we mentioned earlier. Definitely no style points really here, but the Buccaneers are under new ownership, and they've historically not been very good in this league, and that's and that happens. I mean, the owners that had the Buccaneers, the owner that had, there was a couple, but they just never got out of the blocks, and never really could get going, and it was under different circumstances. This year there's a little bit different rules. We got some handicaps to help things along with some of the lower tiered players that could definitely turn things around. But what you want to be is, if you're 28th ranked in the power rankings and you're 1-0, there's nothing wrong with that. You're just going to keep moving up if you just keep putting wins on the board, and winning ugly is part of that. And I could see these guys definitely moving up if they can put another a solid performance together at Atlanta versus Atlanta. So they have another home game, which in Atlanta's 0-1, and they had a tough week 1, coming off a tough defeat in week 1 in overtime. But if the Buccaneers can get things together at home and get to 2-0, I could definitely see this team making a big jump in the week 2 power rankings. Moving on to the team we mentioned earlier, but here they are now at number 27. It's the New Orleans Saints of Greg McMillan in Honey Badger 64. Down 2 spots from 25 in the preseason rankings. Greg lost 26-24 to Green Bay at home, and that was a tough defeat. The Packers did not look good in the early goings of that game, but then came back, and it had to be a tough tough defeat, but at the same time, the Saints did put up a good effort. 24 points at home. In most years, that's usually good enough, but in this year, with some of the different scoring things going on and some of the different situations that are going to happen with higher scores, maybe not the best score, but the Packers that weren't even close coming out of the gate, but somehow were able to pull that one out. But with Greg now, he goes to Carolina, who's 0-1. I mentioned earlier with Polecat that this is probably a pivotal game in the division. Week 2 is, it's really early yet, but at the same time, you don't want to go 0-2 if you don't have to. And I believe that Greg is going to pull it together. I think the Saints are going to make it interesting for sure in that division. I think the Saints are definitely one of the teams that are maybe being slept on a little bit for maybe a wild card berth. But at the same time, it's like Greg, I know, can put together good performances. I've seen him in Pixel Golf football. I've seen him in some of the other competitions and on the tours, and he's capable of always putting together a good round in Stableford. So that will be our number 27 team, and now on to number 26, and this is probably a little bit of a surprise, but it's the not St. Louis Rams, the Los Angeles Rams. Up and up. That would be Kevin Everard, and he's 0-1, coming off a tough defeat on Sunday Night Football to the Chicago Bears, 25-23 to riotous Sam Pond. Tough loss at home at the Valley. The Rams, Kevin's a platinum player. Just dropped down to elite actually before the end of the tour season. Going through some struggles right now, maybe with the swing on master settings. I think Kevin, you can't count Kevin out. He's only down 3 spots from the preseason ranking of 23, but he's going to keep going, and he definitely is up for the competition, and we'll get things going on the right track next week at Indianapolis, which they're 1-0 and they had a heck of a week. So this could be a time where the Rams just need to get their bearings, regroup from that tough home loss, and take it on the road, and maybe that'll help them bounce back and get into the win column going forward here. But that NFC West, it came down to the last game last year between the Cardinals and the Rams, and Art pulling out that win at home, or actually I think it was at LA. And at the end of the day, that was, a huge win for the Cardinals. But the Rams, I feel like the Rams are not gonna be this low for a long time. I think this is the lowest they've been because they've been, ever since CF owned them in the first season, they've had some struggles. And now it's time now. I think the Rams are going to turn things around and get back to prominence again. But now we move up to the 25th spot on the power rankings for NFL Stableford, and we will go to that team here right now as the wheel stops, and it is the Miami Dolphins, who move up 4 spots from 29 last week in the preseason rankings. Now, B. Carroll subbed for Cade and took that 25-24 win over the Patriots on the road, and now, have him set up nicely for a 1-0 record in the AFC East with a game versus Buffalo on the horizon in week 2, which, has the possibility of going 2 games up early on in the division. And Cade, hasn't played yet. And the thing is Cade gets 4 points, and I believe Brandon only gets 2. So at the end of the day, Brandon's playing solid football, solid Stableford, and is definitely a worthy sub who's been in the league before and knows what the league is all about, and is able to put up a good number. And 25 is usually a pretty good number in this new setup, or this new format. So hopefully, we would like to have Cade back as soon as possible, but Brandon's doing just a great job, keeping the Dolphins afloat and keeping things going for Snowflake down there after coming off the big Stableford Cup win a month ago. And just the good things are happening in Miami, and they're going to keep moving up this list if they keep putting wins on the board. They struggled a little bit last year, but this could be a playoff team, and we'll see if we'll see if the momentum continues. Now next to number 24, could be a big surprise here. It's the Cleveland Browns. 12 spots they dropped in this week 1 rankings. They were 12th in the preseason rank, but the Browns of Mav Hockey, Tim, lost 27-22 at Kansas City, and on CBS, the national game of the week there in the AFC. And the Browns it just seemed like they never really got going on that course. The Chiefs environment is very hostile. It's very loud, and it's very unwelcoming to visitors. And the Browns, I thought maybe they were going to put up a little bit better of a showing, maybe give them an overtime game, or maybe even pull out a close win. But a 5-point loss in Stableford is kind of crushing, and I think that contributed to the large drop here. But they do have a chance to redeem themselves next week, of course, and there's always next week in the NFL, and they have Houston in their home opener coming in, and Houston's 1-0 and looking to maybe show that they're for real at Cleveland's expense. And I believe the Browns are going to regroup at home, and this could be their low water mark for the year. As Mav Hockey is a good player, definitely a pro level player who can definitely turn things around. Next, now we move to number 23. Well, it's their neighbors in Ohio, and it's definitely a team that there's some controversy surrounding, but it's the Cincinnati Bengals. The controversy being that they thought they were ranked way too low in the preseason, and the Bengals haven't really done a whole lot in NFL Stableford. It's the hardest team to really fill every year, but getting them to 21 ranking out the gate in preseason, and now they've dropped 2 spots to 23. And it's just mainly due to the fact that they lost at home to Minnesota 29-28. And that was a tough loss. Minnesota gave it all they could. Minnesota probably played the best game they're going to play on the road all season long in week 1. And the Bengals just ran into a buzzsaw of Kirk Cousins. And I think the Bengals are definitely going to be, solid this year, if not a playoff team. But they did have a tough loss at home, but they did put up a lot of points. And that's why they didn't really drop too much from their preseason rank. And I couldn't really justify dropping them more than a couple places. Next, they will have Chicago on the road at riotous 1-0, and I believe that game has already been finished, and I won't spoil it, but the Bengals are definitely going to be looking up in the weeks to come, and I'm sure Jason will definitely get things going again. And that first week, you never know if your opponent's going to pop a big score on you in the NFL Stableford League. That's what's so unpredictable about this league this year, with the handicaps and with the Hail Marys. Things are going to be interesting, and it was definitely that way. And the Bengals kind of got caught out, 1-point losers in week 1. But now we move on from Cincinnati in the state of Ohio to our next ranked team, number 22 on the list. And it's our friends from the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle Seahawks. And they come in at number 22. They were down 2 spots from number 20. Not a big drop, but Chris did have a tough loss in week 1 to the Indianapolis Colts, 31-29, which you got 31 points put up against you. The defense got a little, maybe the stadium wasn't quite as loud as it should have been, or maybe it was just, the Colts were just too good. That was in Indianapolis. Sorry, I thought it was in Seattle, but it was in Indianapolis. And Indianapolis just was on fire in that game. The Seahawks put up a great effort on the road. It's, nothing to be ashamed of. You only lost by 2 points to a team that scored 31. And at the end of the day, you're going to have an opportunity next week to host Tennessee, a team that's a little bit down and probably going to be struggling a little bit this year. But Seattle definitely could use a bounce back. And in that NFC West, it's going to be tough. And you want to take advantage of, the schedule early on and not get too far behind the 8 ball. But I see the Seahawks being a playoff team in this season, and they'll definitely probably have, I'm not going to say an easy time in Tennessee versus Tennessee, but anything can happen in this league, and you don't want to take any opponents lightly. So we'll see if the Seahawks can bounce back and get things back on track. Next, we go to number 21. And this is a team that played last night in Monday Night Football. It's the Baltimore Ravens. And they are down 11 spots from their 10th rank spot in preseason. Now, the Baltimore Ravens, Eddie, Be More Golf Pro, they lost at Las Vegas 30 to 22. Now, that's an anomaly in any 8-point loss in the NFL Stableford League is very rare. And it's definitely an anomaly, and I don't see this result being indicative of the kind of team the Ravens are. I think they just had a bad performance and they ran into a buzzsaw. I'll use that phrase again. And Chinatown just really took it to them in the second half, and the Ravens had no answer. And the Ravens definitely are going to be in the mix for the playoffs. There's 7 teams that are going to make it in the AFC, and I think the Ravens will definitely have their say. And their next opponent will be Kansas City at home in a big AFC matchup that will definitely determine, maybe a tiebreaker down the road. As Kansas City is now 1-0, and the Ravens definitely don't want to fall too far behind, and they definitely want to take advantage of a home game early on against a very good AFC rival. Next, we move to number 20. And let's see where we go there. The Buffalo Bills, number 20. Now, at the end of the day, the Bills dropped 7 spots from 13 in the preseason rankings based on a 27-25 loss to Pittsburgh at home. Now, losing at home is one thing, but losing to Pittsburgh hasn't been a very good team in the NFL Stableford League from the beginning, and there was a lot of hype around the Bills. The Bills Mafia has been very vocal and very upfront out on the forums and in Discord. And losing in week 1 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who probably weren't really favored at all, is a tough loss and a reason for them being 20th in this week's power rankings. But they have a chance to wipe that all away and put the Dolphins through a table in week 2 in Miami in a big AFC East matchup. Now, Miami's 1-0, and the Bills definitely need to put something together and try to get back to 500 as soon as they can, as the Patriots are going to come back. You know that they're going to be involved at some point, and you know that AFC East is always, the Jets are there as well. The Jets are a perennial powerhouse in the NFL Stableford League, so you definitely don't want to get too far behind. But Patrick will bounce back, and I feel like in week 2 things could definitely go a little bit different for Buffalo, and look for a bounce back there. 19. We go to number 19. Who will it be? As we scroll through the teams, it's the Detroit Lions. Now, they don't have Megatron anymore. They don't have Ziggy Ansah or DeAndre Levy. This is 5 years ago already. But CF lost 29-23 to the 49ers. His old buddy, Crushtastic Jason, and that's jarring to me. That those two are very close players in my opinion, and a 6-point loss just shows like if things can get away from you fast in this league. And the fact that the Lions lost by 6 at home, that's definitely not what you want to see. And the Lions were definitely 1 or 2 steps away from being in the Super Bowl last year, and now are ranked 19th in this week 1 power ranking after being 8th in the preseason, which that's tough to take. I know it's going to be a little controversial, but I just feel like the Lions have a lot to prove this season. They may not have taken too well to some of the changes, and I'm hoping that CF sticks with it, and he's a division rival of myself, and we have a great rivalry going forward. We're both in CCA, and I'm hoping that he can figure it out. And not in week 2 though, as he plays at Green Bay on Monday Night Football. CF, I just hope you figure it out in week 3. That would be great. But that would be your the Detroit Lions at number 19 this week in the power rankings. Now, on to number 18. And we go back to the Bees. It's the Chicago Bears. Checking in at number 18. They were 24 last week, so they jumped 6 spots in this week's rankings. Sam won at the Rams, as we mentioned earlier, on the road. That's a big win over the Rams in their geometric stadium facility. And you have to agree that the Bears have been in the doldrums probably since the first season in this league when Gary Wade owned them and took them all the way to the NFC Championship. But now the Bears, are looking to continue that momentum. And now they have the home game versus the Bengals, who are 0-1 coming in to Soldier Field. And we'll see if the Bears are able to continue their run. Not going to give a spoiler, as I already know the Week 2 result, but the Bears are. I don't believe the Bears are going to drop, or I don't think they're going to move much in the Week 2 rankings based on that. But in Week 1, they're definitely establishing themselves as an NFC North contender, and definitely, I would say a wild card playoff contender as well. The Bears, I believe they're in good hands, and they are 18th this week in the power rankings. Now on to number 17. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they are up 14 whopping spots from number 31. After that win, which was by Sky Blue Ben Tuff, who beat the Buffalo Bills 27-25, they are 1-0. And next they will play the Vegas Raiders, who are probably the other big surprise in the league so far. And that 1-0 record is nothing to take lightly, as that AFC North division is going to be crazy. That is a nutty division, and there's so many good players in that division. And the Steelers coming out 1-0, and now they have a new owner. Their new owner is now Pat Strife, who is coming in, taking over a great situation, and could knock off the defending NFL Stableford champs in Week 2 on a CBS national game between two very storied franchises. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen there. I believe Pat's already played the game, and I will not spoil it here, but we'll see if he's able to pull that out in at home versus the Vegas Raiders, who we'll hear from later on in this countdown. All right, next up on the list, we're halfway home in the NFL Stableford Week 1 power rankings. It's going to be Art Vandelay and the Arizona Cardinals at number 16, who did not move at all this week. They stayed exactly where they were. They're 1-0. They got that win at Tennessee 24-22 on Monday Night Football. And Art's got to be over the moon, as he probably did not play his best game. Kyler was not really hitting the receivers, but used the legs and got the chains moving when necessary, and was able to pull out a Hail Mary at the end of the first half that ended up getting the job done. So that moves the Cardinals to a 1-0 record in the NFC West, which is going to be a very highly contested division as well. And Art won that division last year, and we'll see if he can repeat the feat. But they'll have to get through the Minnesota Vikings in Week 2 first here before they can get too high, as the Vikings are coming off a great win in Week 1 as well. And Art will be hosting those Vikings in America's Game of the Week. Two playoff teams from a season ago, and it should be a very monumental. It should be a monumental clash. And I'm looking forward to seeing it on Twitch. Art Vandelay was in the pool. That should be interesting, and I'm sure the commissioner will pop in for that and pay his respects to the stream and say hello to Mr. Vandelay. But Minnesota will definitely not be an will not be a cakewalk for Art. Next, we move into the top half of the rankings. I'm going to take a quick drink here, and I will get right back here and get you to the top half of the NFL Stableford Week 1 rankings. And we're back. I'm hoping we're back. We'll see if this continues or if I'm muted or not. Let me do a quick check here. I think we're good. I think we're good. I will be right back here with number 15 on the list. I just wanted to make sure that everything was good here. All right. I think we're good. So we're back, and it's number 15 on the NFL Stableford Power Rankings for Week 1. And here we go. Actually, wrong way. We'll make it a little faster by going this way. It is the Houston Texans of the Taft Man, Paul, who won 30-25 at home versus Jacksonville. This was probably the biggest upset of Week 1, in my opinion. Paul has been, talking himself down a little bit heading into the season. He actually told me he wasn't even going to come back this season, like as an inside story. He was 26th ranked in the preseason, jumps 11 spots to number 15, and beats the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had to be considered the favorite to win that division coming into this season. But that's definitely that prediction has definitely taken a turn as Paul just dominated at home and pulled out a huge win. Now next, can Paul continue this momentum at Cleveland, who's 0-1 and looking to really bounce back? And Paul just he's on the Xbox. He's already got an inherent disadvantage there, being on the Xbox with master settings. But I believe Paul's made the most of it. Paul has the right attitude, and I think that's what's helping the Texans right now, is the fact that, Paul knows his limitations on that system, on that console, but he also knows that, I got to play the games, and he streams, and he's a champ for doing it, and I'm really glad he's in the league. And congrats to the Texans on this 15th rank, which is probably the highest they've been in a long time, probably since season 1, when Nick from France, Nick 80 from the Xbox days, was actually the league runner-up that year as the Texans. So this is like a return to relevance here for this Texans franchise at NFL Stableford. Now, on to number 14. And this is another big surprise, but another big jump. It's the it's the Los Angeles Chargers now. And they are moved up 8 spots from 22 in the preseason rankings up to number 14. Bino, Mike, won 29-28 at the Washington football team. And that was an impressive win when I saw it, when it came in over the ticker. And I know the WFT is still in disbelief over it and throwing out those conspiracy theories and whatnot. But this is legit. Bino put out a big round and definitely, took it to him on the road. And that's a huge win for the Chargers going forward in the AFC West, as that division's going to be a battle all season long. And the WFT definitely, probably just got caught a little bit out at home, but the Chargers, they have the weapons, and they were able to put it all together. And now they have to go. Now they host Dallas in week 2, and this could be a 2-0 team and moving up the list. And you want to start off good. You definitely do, and there's something to be said for that. And the Chargers have done so. Now we move up to number 13, a team that had a big win in week 1, and that's the San Francisco 49ers, right up the coast. And they move up 6 spots from number 19 in the preseason rankings. Yeah, that's right. Jason won 29-23 at Detroit, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. And the Niners did not make the playoffs last year, and I think that was a little bit of a downer for them. I know they were in it all the way to the end, and that result that Art got at LA was what knocked the Niners out. And the Niners did have the tiebreaker, other than, besides that. But if the Cardinals would have lost that game, it would have been a tie, and the Niners would have been the ones that would have went. But as it went, the Niners were home last year and did not make it. And this year, they're looking to change that. And they're on their way, as they now will be facing, they'll be at Philadelphia in week 2. And this is definitely a game of the week that's flying under the radar for me, as I see these two teams probably making a big jump and getting back into the playoff picture right away. As I know Jason's been playing lights out on the tours, and he's been playing pretty good golf, pretty good Stableford since he's been in the league. And Philadelphia is an upstart that has not really gone too far. I don't think they've ever made the playoffs in NFL Stableford, but I think this year Zucchero Ryan is looking to change that, and that's going to be a great game. Now we move on to number 12. The Kansas City Chiefs up up 6 spots from number 18. Kike won 27-22 against Cleveland. Uh, Goes 1-0, solid win right out of the gate. The Chiefs always tough at home, and they proved that again in week 1. Definitely a little bit. They were in the playoff picture last year, but the wheels kind of fell off toward the end. And they're looking to turn it around in this season, and they're well on their way. And we'll have Baltimore in Baltimore next, and that's probably in the AFC. That's going to be my big game for that conference this week. Is these two teams, the Chiefs and Baltimore. To me, what are those? Definitely is going to make the playoffs in my opinion. Kike, I don't believe has ever made. I think he made the playoffs in the first season. In one of the seasons, Kike I thought made the playoffs, but I know the Chiefs. I know he's hungry. The Chiefs are definitely a team to be reckoned with in NFL Stableford going forward. Now, it's time for number 11. Now, this is based off a lot of last year. It's the Atlanta Falcons, who were ranked 5th coming into the season. They're down 6 spots after week 1. Ruby was a little bit of a late add to the league. He did not play in the Cup and then came back. So there could have been a little bit of, getting the playbook and getting everything set up and some issues there, but still put up a hell of a game at home against the Philadelphia Eagles and lost in overtime 29-26. They were tied 26 apiece, but the tiebreaker, the overtime went the way of Ryan and the Eagles, and put up a good game at home. I mean, it was still a solid game, but the Falcons were the Super Bowl runner-up last year. They made it there, and they lost to the Raiders, and the Falcons could be having that Super Bowl hangover. We'll see if they can if they can stay relevant this season. I think the NFC South is definitely theirs for the taking if they can put together some good performances here early on against their division, as they now have Tampa Bay in Tampa in a big divisional game right off the bat. I think that can go, either way, really, if, Tampa, starts playing a little bit better. But Atlanta's not in a panic mode yet, as that NFC South might not be the most difficult of divisions, but you don't want to get too far behind. And I think that's where the Falcons are a little wary right now at number 11. Now we hit the top 10, and we're at long last there. And number 10, it's none other than the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, they came in 4th ranked in the preseason. They're down 6 spots here. Corey lost 30-25 at Houston to Paul in probably the biggest upset of week 1 in my eyes. And that's tough to take. I mean, the Jaguars, had a great season last year under different ownership. Made it to the divisional round and then lost. But they were looking to, continue the momentum of that season. And Corey is a heck of a player, and I've played in other competitions with Corey, and I know this is probably just a temporary setback for them. But they did drop 6 spots, and I believe rightly so, as Houston was definitely not favored to win that game going in. But they took it to the Jaguars, and now the Jaguars, with a possibility now of maybe having an 0-2 start if Denver comes in and has a good game against them at home in Jacksonville, which that could be a tough one. So we'll see how it goes, but you you don't want to really start off 0-2 if you can't help it, but if any team can come back from that, it would probably be the Jaguars, as I think the AFC South is definitely wide open, uh, with a couple of Xbox players in that division, and Corey being as good of a player as he is. This could be a little bit early to push the panic button, but 10th ranked, got to be a little bit disappointed, but there's still lots of time. We're only going into week 2. And on that note, we're heading to number 9, and the ninth ranked team is none other than the Indianapolis Colts. Look at Pat McAfee down there. The Colts of B-Mells won 31-29 versus Seattle. Big win. I mean, Seattle's definitely considered a playoff team in my eyes this season, but as far as that win goes, that was a shocker. A 31-29 victory. 31 points, tied for the top point total. I believe that was the top point total of the week. 30, there was a couple 30s out there as well, but B-Mells just put it on the Seahawks at home, and a very impressive win, and definitely deserving of a top 10 spot. Next, they will be playing versus the Rams, which a tough team there, but if you can go 2-0 out of the gate, you got to be feeling really good in terms of the AFC South picture and the AFC playoff picture, as two tough NFC West opponents right off the bat for the Colts. And if you can dispatch them both, and you haven't even played a division game yet, and you haven't even played anybody in the AFC yet, so this is a huge thing for the Colts, and they could definitely find themselves even moving up even further if they can put up another great performance at home against the Rams. But great effort there in week 1 for the Colts. And now we move on to number 8, and speaking of great efforts, it's the Philadelphia Eagles, who move up 6 spots from 14 in the preseason. Ryan Zucchero with a big win at Atlanta, 29-26 in overtime. A little bit of a question mark going in about the Eagles. Wasn't really sure, was it going to be the Cup Eagles or the Eagles, you know, maybe struggled a little bit during the Cup season, but now they come back, and this could be good. I mean, Ryan, he was the Cowboys in the Cup, but a little bit up and down performances, but now as owner of the Eagles, Ryan's definitely establishing himself with a nice early victory in week 1, and now we'll have the 49ers coming in for the home opener, which is probably my NFC, sleeper of the week game. That both of these teams have playoff potential, and right now the Eagles are the leaders in the NFC East. Who would have thought that? And they're not even ranked above the other teams that are in their division, because it's just that close of a division, and there's so much of a pedigree that I think after week 1 you don't want to make too many snap judgments, but I think the NFC East is probably the toughest division in football, in NFL Stableford, I want to say, because of all the talent in that division alone, and just every week is going to be a battle in that division. But from one Eastern team to another team, but this team is in the AFC, we move up to number 7, and it's the New York Jets. They were 11th last week in the preseason rankings, and they move up 4 spots on the heels of a 26-25 win at Carolina. That was a close game. Jets probably didn't play their best effort, but they did just enough to win, and that's what you want to do on week 1. And the Jets are a perennial playoff team in NFL Stableford, and an AFC East contender every year. I believe they won the division last year going away. But now they will play against New England, and that's a big division rivalry. New England's licking their wounds a little bit after that first week loss, and we'll see if the Jets can keep rising high in these rankings. But 7th is definitely, not bad as a way to start off the season. and they'll be looking to soar to even greater heights in the weeks to come. But next, move to number 6 in a team that I know pretty well. It's the Green Bay Packers. Moving up one spot, not a very drastic, it could have stayed the same, but moved up one spot due to some of the volatility in the rankings. 126-24 at New Orleans, as mentioned way earlier in the broadcast. Had a horrible first half of football. Just did not play well at all. Was probably lucky to pull this game out, to be honest, and they did so. The cardiac pack came through with some big play in the second half to take it to the next level and get that win in week 1. Knowing that they have a home game now against the Lions coming up here in week 2 on Monday Night Football, the Packers at 2-0 in the NFC North is right where you want to be, especially when you have a lot of great teams that are coming up now in this league. You want to stay where you were, and you don't want to lose any of that ground. And CF is a familiar foe in the Lions, and we'll see if we have another classic on tap in week number 2. Now we head to the top 5. And who do we have leading it off? It's the New York Football Giants, the G-Men, number 5. They dropped 4 spots from number 1 last week. So not what you want to see if you're Don Tag Rocket. Lost 26-25 to Denver in America's Game of the Week last week. The Miracle at MetLife is what they're calling it. A very tough loss. In a tough environment, at home, you don't want to drop those early home games, but it happens, and Denver did just enough to pull it out, and the Giants are now, doesn't get any easier, as now they are heading at Washington for week 2 for Sunday Night Football. Now that's going to be interesting. The Giants and Washington have a really good rivalry in NFL Stableford. It's been, 2 seasons straight now of just nip and tuck games. I believe they tied for the best record in the division last year. I believe the Giants had the tiebreaker, but it's just been a very close division and 2 powerhouse teams. And now you add Philadelphia to the mix. It's 3 teams now. It's probably a 3-headed monster in that division. So Don and the Giants dropped to 5. And next, we head to the Final 4. And who do we have in the 4th spot? They're not the football team in this, but they are they're not the football team on your screen, but they are in this league. It's Washington. They are down 2 spots from number 2. Zach lost 29-28 to the Chargers, as we mentioned earlier. The conspiracy theories surrounding that game. The Chargers just got it done, and at the end of the day, the football team, I think they gave their best effort, and they knew going in this season's going to be wild. There's going to be some weird results, and I think the football team just got outplayed. That's all that really happened. I think I didn't panic too much with that loss for them, because I know they're consistent every week in this league, and they have the Giants now at home and a chance to recuperate, get back to 500 on Sunday Night Football at the expense of a division rival. And that's what you want to be able to do, is to prove yourself every Sunday in this league to see how things go down the road. And these games early in the season, you don't think about them when they're happening, but as the weeks go on, tiebreakers come into effect and things of that nature, and you really want to make hay as much as you can early on. So later on, if you do want to, rest your starters a little bit toward the end of the season, because it's going to be a long season. It's an 18-week season this year with 17 games and a bye. So it's going to be interesting. But the football team checks in at number 4. Number 3 is the Minnesota Vikings, up 6 spots from number 9. The Vikings of Andrew beat Cincinnati 29-28 on the road, which was impressive in and of itself. And then you take the fact that, the NFC North is usually a tough division in NFL Stableford. Last year it was a nip and tuck affair, as all 3 out of 4 teams made the playoffs in a 7-team playoff structure, it was the Vikings, Packers, and Lions all making it. And the Vikings, I believe, had the most impressive win out of the division leaders that are heading into the NFC this week. I feel like this team is always under the radar, but then they turn it on toward the playoff time, and they just haven't been able to break through to get that big Super Bowl victory, and that's what's really been lacking for the Vikings franchise as a whole. You take the old joke of the Viking trophy case, and it's just empty. And they're hoping to change that this year. And I think with that big win early on against Cincinnati, that this could be the year. As now they head to Arizona for America's Game of the Week to keep the momentum going. Now, is it Cousins? Is it the defense? What's holding them back? Really, we'll find out. But if they keep it going early on in this season, as a division rival of the Vikings, I'm not looking forward to playing them. They know their home stadium very well. They travel well, and they're definitely a tough team to beat in this league, and they are number 3 for that reason. Next, we head to number 2, and the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos of Austin they beat the Giants in the Miracle at MetLife 26-25, as we mentioned earlier. Took all the way to the final minutes of the game to convert that Hail Mary, and they moved up one spot from 3 in the preseason rankings to number 2. Just not quite enough to overtake the number 1 team, which you'll find out here in a second, but I'm sure you'll know by now. But the Denver Broncos were in the AFC Championship game last season. They lost to this eventual number 1 team this week in the rankings, but they've picked up where they left off with new ownership. A little bit of upheaval there, but coming in and beating a team like the Giants in week 1 is a statement win, no matter how you put it. Kudos to the Broncos for that and getting to number 2 on this week's power rankings. But number 1, and this is the shocker, probably up there with the biggest upset of the week. I know the Texans was a pretty big one as well, but this one, with all the pressure coming in, the Las Vegas Raiders are the number 1 team in this week's power rankings, the week 1 rankings in the NFL Stableford League. Chinatown, very unknowing person who joined this league, probably had no clue what he was getting into with this team. But these are the defending champions of the league, and you got a target on your back every week now if you're the defending champions. And he walked in and admittedly struggled in the first half against Baltimore at home, and then just they turned it on in the second half and put up 30 points to win on Sunday Night Football as the defending champions, 30-22 over the Baltimore Ravens, to move up one spot. Actually, no, they were 6th in the preseason rankings, and they moved up 5 to number 1 this week. With all the pressure of, that bad first half and all the, just not really knowing the situation when you walk into somewhere, and they handled it great. And it was all live for you to see, all transparent. So what you see is what you get there from Chinatown. And the first half was a stinker, and the second half was gold, or silver in this case, silver and black. And it was all silver and black in that second half. And now they will go at Pittsburgh in a really big game, a showcase game in the AFC next week on national television, against Pat Strife, who just took over the Pittsburgh Steelers, and now in week 2 for an early big game feel in the AFC. And kudos to the Raiders for getting the job done at home. The Ravens are a tough opponent this season, and in previous seasons they've been a tough opponent as well, when Benny owned them, and also when Crazy Canuck owned them as well. So at the end of the day, the Raiders are the number 1 team in the NFL Stableford League Week 1 Power Rankings. I want to thank you for joining me. This is Lefty79, Tyler Parra, the commissioner of the NFL Stableford League. I want to thank you for joining me today in the unveiling of these rankings. I'm going to probably put these out in the forums as well in terms of a paper copy, but I wanted to have these out, my opinions out in the air, so everybody knows how I come up with these rankings and some of my thought process behind them, instead of just typing them out and putting them out on the forums and just kind of having them sit there. Give a little bit more life to these rankings, and I hope you'll enjoy tuning in every week for these on Tuesdays during my lunch hour, and I enjoy bringing them to you. But we'll leave on this note that the Raiders are the number one team in the NFL Stableford League in Week One's power rankings. Thank you for joining the broadcast, and we'll see you again very soon. Goodbye for now.